typical, I think, economic cycles, it's hard to spot that there's job losses occurring. What's your point of view on this?
Yes. There was a recent paper, I think, titled something like The Canary in the Mine, where we see on specific job types like young adults and so on, we're starting to see a shift that may be due to AI, even though on the average aggregate of the whole population, it doesn't seem to have any effect yet. So I think it's plausible we're going to see in some places where AI can really take on more of the work. But in my opinion, it's just a matter of time. If unless we hit a wall scientifically, like some obstacle that prevents us from making progress to make AIs smarter and smarter, there's going to be a time when they'll be doing more and more, able to do more and more of the work that people do. And then, of course, it takes years for companies to really integrate that into their workflows, but they're eager to do it. So it's more a matter of time than, is it happening or not?
It's a matter of time before the AI can do most of the jobs that people do these days.
The cognitive jobs. So the jobs that you can do behind a keyboard. Robotics is still lagging also, although we're seeing progress. So if you do a physical job, as Jeff Hinton is often saying, you should be a plumber or something, it's going to take more time. But I think it's only a temporary thing. Why is it that robotics is lagging compared to doing physical things compared to doing more intellectual things that you can do behind a computer? One possible reason is simply that we don't have the very large data sets that exist with the internet, where we see so much of our cultural output, intellectual output. But there's no such thing for robots yet. But as companies are deploying more and more robots, they will be collecting more and more data. So eventually, I think it's going to happen.
Well, my co-founder at ThirdWeb runs this thing in San Francisco called F-Inc, Founders Inc. And as I walked through the halls and saw all of these young kids building things, almost everything I saw was robotics. And he explained to me, he said, the crazy thing is, Stephen, 5 years ago, to build any of the robot hardware you see here, it would cost so much money to get the sort of intelligence layer, the software piece. And he goes, now you can just get it from the cloud for a couple of cents. He goes, so what you're seeing is this huge rise in robotics because now the intelligence, the software is so cheap. And as I walked through the halls of this accelerator in San Francisco, I saw everything from this machine that was making personalized perfume for you so you don't need to go to the shops, to an arm in a box that had a frying pan in it that could cook you your breakfast because it has this robot arm and it knows exactly what you want to eat. So it cooks it for you using this robotic arm and so much more.
Yeah.
And he said, what we're actually seeing now is this boom in robotics because the software is cheap. And so when I think about Optimus and why Elon has pivoted away from just doing cars and is now making these humanoid robots, it suddenly makes sense to me because the AI software is cheap now.
And by the way, going back to the question of catastrophic risks, an AI with bad intentions could do a lot more damage if it can control robots in the physical world. If it can only stay in the virtual world, it has to convince humans to do things that are bad. And AI is getting better at persuasion in more and more studies. But it's even easier if it can just hack robots to do things that would be bad for us.
Elon has forecasted there'll be millions of humanoid robots in the world. And there is a dystopian future where you can imagine the AI hacking into these robots. The AI will be smarter than us. So why couldn't it hack into the million humanoid robots that exist out in the world? I think Elon actually said there'd be 10 billion. I think at some point he said there'd be more humanoid robots than humans on Earth. But not that it would even need to cause an extinction event because of these cards in front of you.
Yes. So that's for the national security risks that are coming with the advances in AIs. C in CBRN, standing for chemical weapons. So we already know how to make chemical weapons, and there are international agreements to try to not do that. But up to now, it required very strong expertise to build these things, and AIs know enough now to help someone who doesn't have the expertise to build these chemical weapons. And then the same idea applies on other fronts. So B for biological, and again, we're talking about biological weapons. So what is a biological weapon? So for example, a very dangerous virus that already exists, but potentially in the future, new viruses that the AIs could help somebody with insufficient expertise to do it themselves build. N, R for radiological. So we're talking about substances that could make you sick because of the radiations. How do you manipulate them? There's all, very special expertise. And finally, N for nuclear. The recipe for building a bomb, a nuclear bomb, is something that could be in our future. And right now, for these kinds of risks, very few people in the world had the knowledge to do that. And so it didn't happen. But AI is democratizing knowledge, including the dangerous knowledge. We need to manage that.
So the AI systems get smarter and smarter. If we just imagine any rate of improvement, if we just imagine that they improve 10% a month from here on out, eventually they get to the point where they are significantly smarter than any human that's ever lived. And is this the point where we call it AGI or superintelligence, where it's significant? What's the definition of that in your mind?
There are definitions.
Yeah.
The problem with those definitions is that they're kind of focus on the idea that intelligence is one-dimensional.
Okay, versus
the reality that we already see now is what people call jagged intelligence, meaning the AIs are much better than us on some things, like mastering 200 languages. No one can do that. Being able to pass the exams across the board of all disciplines at PhD level. And at the same time, they're stupid like a 6-year-old in many ways, not able to plan more than an hour ahead. So they're not like us. Their intelligence cannot be measured by IQ or something like this, because there are many dimensions, and you really have to measure many of these dimensions to get a sense of where they could be useful and where they could be dangerous.
When you say that, though, I think of some things where my intelligence reflects a 6-year-old. Do you know what I mean? Like in certain drawing, if you watch me draw, you probably think 6-year-old.
Yeah, and some of our psychological weaknesses, I think you could say they're part of the package that we have as children, and we don't always have the maturity to step back or the environment to step back.
I say this because of your biological weapons scenario. At some point, these AI systems are going to be just incomparably smarter than human beings. And then someone might, in some laboratory somewhere in Wuhan, ask it to help develop a biological weapon. Or maybe not. Maybe they'll input some kind of other command that has an unintended consequence of creating a biological weapon. So they could say, make something that cures all flus. And the AI might first set up a test where it creates the worst possible flu and then tries to create something that cures that.
Yeah.
Or some other unintended
So there's a worse scenario in terms of like biological catastrophes. It's called mirror life.
Mirror life.
Mirror life. So you take a living organism like a virus or a bacteria, and you design all of the molecules inside. So each molecule is the mirror of the normal one. So, if you had the whole organism on one side of the mirror, now imagine on the other side, it's not the same molecules. It's just a mirror image. And as a consequence, our immune system would not recognize those pathogens, which means those pathogens could go through us and eat us alive. And in fact, eat alive most of living things on the planet. And biologists now know that it's plausible this could be developed in the next few years or the next decade if we don't put a stop to this. So I'm giving this example because science is progressing sometimes in directions where the knowledge in the hands of somebody who's malicious or simply misguided could be completely catastrophic for all of us. And AI, like superintelligence, is in that category. Mirror life is in that category. We need to manage those risks, and we can't do it like alone in our company. We can't do it alone in our country. It has to be something we coordinate globally.
There is an invisible tax on salespeople that no one really talks about enough. The mental load of remembering everything, like meeting notes, timelines, and everything in between. Until we started using our sponsor's product called Pipedrive, one of the best CRM tools for small and medium-sized business owners. The idea here was that it might alleviate some of the unnecessary cognitive overload that my team was carrying, so that they could spend less time in the weeds of admin and more time with clients, in-person meetings, and building relationships. Pipedrive has enabled this to happen. It's such a simple but effective CRM that automates the tedious, repetitive, and time-consuming parts of the sales process. And now our team can nurture those leads and still have bandwidth to focus on the higher priority tasks that actually get the deal over the line. Over 100,000 companies across 170 countries already use Pipedrive to grow their business, and I've been using it for almost a decade now. Try it free for 30 days. No credit card needed, no payment needed. Just use my link, pipedrive.com/CEO to get started today. That's pipedrive.com/CEO. Of all the risks, the existential risks that sit there before you on these cards that you have, but also just generally, is there one that you're most concerned about in the near term?
I would say there is a risk that we haven't spoken about and doesn't get to be discussed enough, and it could happen pretty quickly. And that is the use of advanced AI to acquire more power. So you could imagine a corporation dominating economically the rest of the world because they have more advanced AI. You could imagine a country dominating the rest of the world politically, militarily, because they have more advanced AI. And when the power is concentrated in a few hands, well, it's a toss, right? If the people in charge are benevolent, that's good. If they just want to hold on to their power, which is the opposite of what democracy is about, then we're all in very bad shape. And I don't think we pay enough attention to that kind of risk. So it's going to take some time before you have total domination of a few corporations or a couple of countries, if AI continues to become more and more powerful. But we might see those signs already happening with concentration of wealth as a first step towards concentration of power. If you're incredibly richer, then you can have incredibly more influence on politics, and then it becomes self-reinforcing.
And in such a scenario, it might be the case that a foreign adversary, or the United States or the UK or whatever, are the first to a super intelligent version of AI, which means they have a military which is 100 times more effective and efficient. It means that everybody needs them to compete economically. And so they become a superpower that basically governs the world.
Yeah, that's a bad scenario. In a future that is less dangerous because we mitigate the risk of a few people like basically holding on to superpower for the planet. A future that is more appealing is one where the power is distributed, where no single person, no single company or small group of companies, no single country or small group of countries has too much power. It has to be that in order to make some really important choices for the future of humanity, when we start playing with very powerful AI, it comes out of a reasonable consensus from people from around the planet, and not just the rich countries, by the way. Now, how do we get there? I think that's a great question, but at least we should start putting forward, where should we go in order to mitigate these political risks?
Is intelligence the sort of precursor of wealth and power? Is that a statement that holds true? So if whoever has the most intelligence, are they the person that then has the most economic power? And because they then generate the best innovation, they then understand even the financial markets better than anybody else. They then are the beneficiary of all the GDP.
Yes, but we have to understand intelligence in a broad way. For example, human superiority to other animals, in large part, is due to our ability to coordinate. So as a big team, we can achieve something that no individual humans could against like a very strong animal. But that also applies to AIs, right? We already have many AIs, and we're building multi-agent systems with multiple AIs collaborating. So yes, I agree. Intelligence gives power. And as we build technology that yields more and more power, it becomes a risk that this power is misused for